Ay, it's a new world, gotta adapt to it. Innovation, information, more than the average. Rushing, please ignore the interruptions. Cause this is digital discussions.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Digital Discussions. Today, I have another amazing panel. My friends have joined me today. Jen Green from Pet Valu, Kevin Nassimi from Nassimi Realty, and our own Sabre's finest, Russel Helbling, with his shoe collection in the background.
Howdy, just a small snippet.
Very fresh.
So, guys, you know what? Why don't we just open it up, going around the room a little bit? Jen, why don't you just tell us about yourself and Pet Valu, just so the audience gets a little background on you.
Yeah, so I worked at Pet Valu. It will be 10 years in August. Pet Valu is owned by Work Capital under the banner Pet Retail Brands. We have over 1,300 stores operating in Canada, throughout the East Coast and Florida and Texas.
Excellent. Kevin, you want to do the same?
So Nassimi Realty, family, privately held real estate company based out of New York, own about 6 million square feet, predominantly suburban shopping centers, tertiary markets, B and T grade kind of stuff, with then a handful of office and residential as well.
Excellent. And Russell, why don't you give us the quick and dirty on Russel Helbling?
Russel Helbling. I work for an amazing boutique brokerage firm called Sabre Real Estate Group. I've been there for 10 years now, however long it's been around. I've been there. Focused on retail, both tenant and landlord representation in the New York metro market. Predominantly focused for me is Long Island, but I do a number of deals in New Jersey and Westchester and Southern Connecticut and anywhere that makes sense for us.
Excellent. So I'll kick us off for the discussion here. You know, just feel free to have a casual conversation about what we're all dealing with and this COVID-19 state of the world right now. I happen to focus nationally, so my my experience is different in each market that we're servicing. Jen, you have 1,300 locations nationally and internationally. So, are you noticing a difference in the hotspot markets versus other areas? What are you seeing out there?
No, I mean, everything seems pretty consistent across the board. It's really a difference in laws. They're changing all the time and just trying to keep up with them. Canada is definitely different than the US. So just trying to keep some consistency across the brands while trying to comply with code and in the various areas.
So I guess a better question is, how many stores do you have open for business currently?
Well, I can't guarantee they're all open, but they all should be open. Some need to shut down occasionally to be cleaned, but now we're pretty much over that hump. We're only allowing 2 customers in the store at once, and after the customers leave, it's wiped down. So they're pretty sanitary right now, but yeah, they all should be open at this point, just limited operations.
That's great. I wasn't expecting that answer. Kevin,
yeah,
what's happening?
I'm sorry.
No, that's awesome. I mean, you're fortunate to be open under most circumstances. Kevin, are all your stores, all your tenants open?
Big change. I can answer that pretty well because we own in about 15 different states, and definitely the vibes are different state by state as you go. Obviously, New York, urban, the hot spot, all of our city retail and stuff is hurt the most. Some state, we own a mall in South Carolina that's opening next week, and the majority of the tenants can open. And anytime you talk to a tenant or a local or a property manager down there, in their heads that you could almost kind of hear them saying, like, we feel like this is an urban problem in New York. Like, yeah, we've had like 11 cases in this county or something like that. But, we all drive in our own cars to work. They work in a building with 50 people in it tops, and they're sitting 30 feet apart naturally. So they're going to start opening next week. Let's see how it goes. Same with our properties in Tennessee. I would say right now, simply grocery is king. There,
Yeah.
thank God the majority of our shopping centers are grocery anchored, which is helping right now. And some of the other shopping centers that are anchored by, a Penny or Macy's or Belk or something like that are in a tough spot right now. Traffic is definitely down. A lot of the small shops are closed and times are tough.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, grocery is king, but pet is probably also right up there, man. I was outside and my neighbor yesterday, obviously from a distance. I was outside with my boys on the front lawn playing wiffle ball, and they came back and from a store and got out of the car, and they're like, "We can't find pet food anywhere." And I'm kind of laughing based on the timing of this.
Yeah, and to speak to that, our pet sales are definitely doing well across the board. The problem, we're not seeing, full sales, mainly because we're really focused on keeping our employees and our customers safe. We are not letting customers shop on their own. Our employees are picking the stuff, and it's really, people are just getting their necessities at this point. Also, we don't have online services the way some other brands do. We're 1% of our sales is online. We never did a Pet Value. We're going to try to eventually. It's just hasn't been, it's been a loss for a lot of brands because of the costs of delivery. And then the other thing is we've had to shut down our grooming and our pet washes. So all of our operations are limited, but eventually we'll be able to open up again, and we're seeing a lot of adoptions and people are buying puppies. I'm sure you have friends. I mean, it seems like, so there'll be a lot of opportunity when this is over.
For sure. Russell,
I have a question and a comment too. One to Kevin. Yeah, to your point about in like South Carolina or Tennessee, like we were talking to a developer. I talked to a developer the other day that's based out of Tennessee. He's actually based in New York, but his main company is based in Tennessee, and they're calling it the Yankee virus. Literally, that's what they're saying. That it has nothing to do with us. It's the Yankee virus. They're shutting down the country. It's all their fault. It's a New York problem, which I think is crazy. But it's crazy. It's the South, and that's their opinion. And Jen, I wanted to ask you: are you guys offering like curbside pickup and things of that nature?
Yeah. So it took us a few weeks to get that going due to our POS system. We just didn't have anything like that. So yeah, now you can call in your order and pick it up, which is nice, because for a while, a lot of people didn't want to leave the house around here. People are still hesitant, but it's not, people are taking those weekly trips now, I think. So yeah, so that's helped us a lot with sales to be able to bring them out to the curb.
That's great. Kevin, we are approaching May 1st, man. What do you think the rent percentage that you're going to receive will be in May?
Great question. We're getting close to calculated April. I always said, by the way, the best thing about this virus is that it happened in the middle of March. So by then, mostly everyone paid March, and that month was away. That was the only good news from the timing. April has been a dogfight. It's really all I'm doing all day. Our whole leasing team we're not really, all deals we've been working on for the most part have been put on hold. So our job is to help on the collection side and, use those tenant relationships. It's sector by sector broken down. I would say that we're at this point lucky if we've gotten half of April. And I because we have things in different states, I actually foresee it may get a little better in May, but it then also can get uglier with certain people who are able to, let's say, pay half of April while closed, and then if closed in May, they may also not. So it could even out. I would say we're probably at about half right now, but we're still fighting for it all. It's not settled. That's all morning. That's what I was working on, talking to people.
What's the approach that your organization's taking as far as relief? Is it deferral? Is it just what? How are you guys responding to the folks who have not sent in their April rent checks? How do you approach that?
The Goodfellas approach. Fuck you, pay me, right? No, I'm kidding. Case by case, we're actually on the verge of making like a health ratio for credit tenants on where they are. Like someone like LA Fitness has the nerve to say we're not paying you at all. Like we know how strong they are financially. Or companies like TJ Maxx or Burlington or Ross. Those we're battling. Maybe it's a trade-off. It's okay. Waive this co-tenancy or relax this or renew your lease. But for the most part, we're trying to get half April is kind of the mindset for anyone who's forced to be closed, and defer the second half and start paying it back as of July. Same will go for May if you're forced to close for May. But for some of the nationals with strong credit, we're really pushing them to pay, and we're kind of at a standstill point. Again, we're a private, small company. We have one in-house attorney. We're not about to send out 30 default letters. It's just not who we are by nature. We're the type of people who want to work it out. Everything's been case by case. We're renewing people early and giving them a month off, or waive your co-tenancy right, or everything we're taking case by case is making our job a lot harder, but it's
A lot of work.
what we're doing.
Jen, what are you seeing out there? I mean, obviously, when you have stores that are operating,
so it's been tricky. We actually made a chart of sales for our landlords so they can demonstrate, the sales situation. Really, our reason to ask for deferrals is to retain the operating capital so we can continue. We would, in some cases, which again, hopefully we're over the hump. A few weeks ago, it may have been better to close our doors. That said, it doesn't really help anyone because meaning the partnership between us and the landlord. If we close our doors, we're going to lose additional sales in the future to competitors. That's just how it works. We shut our doors, they find somewhere else to go. They may have a new home. So we've just been taking it store by store, and we've worked out deals with mostly all of our landlords at this point. It was a lot of work, but what's fair? We expect, we expect fairness. It's not, it's not us or, it's not, we're not trying to bully anyone into giving us something that, isn't fair. So I think we've taken a fair approach. That said, I'm on a call with about 60 retailers every week, and everyone's pretty much in the same boat, trying to navigate the situation. I think a lot of times people try to take advantage of the situation, obviously. But some are just trying to see what's ahead and to try to stay healthy, the company to stay healthy so that they can make it, through the year. Because I think, if some of these tenants did pay rent, they wouldn't be around. They wouldn't be around in November. And hopefully, Kevin, you'll get 100% of your rent by the end of this year or next year, and that you'll be made whole. But yeah, there's no playbook here for this. There's just none. And so everyone's just trying to figure out how to get through it.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting. We have a panel that is obviously a tenant, Jen, a landlord, Kevin, and Russell. You're an advisor that handles a lot of different accounts, national, regional, on down to the, more local Main Street types of tenants. So what are you hearing, and how are you able to assist those folks?
So again, I'd like to what Jen just said. There is no playbook, so every day is a new adventure. But what I found to be somewhat interesting is that and I wanted to ask you this question, Kevin. It seems to be there's still a very small handful of tenants that are still saying, we want to grow and we want to take advantage of this blip and the downturn. Dollar General, for example, they're still saying, we want to grow. We're still opening 1,000 stores this year. We're actually working on a deal with Aaron right now to backfill an old Dollar Tree space, and they're rearing to go. It's very interesting. Again, maybe it's that all their stores are open and they're still making money because they're technically a grocery store, right? Or that they're based out of Tennessee, where they're looking at this like it's the Yankee virus, and they don't see it as serious as we're seeing it here in the Northeast. But I think that it's a very interesting approach, and that's keeping me busy. The other side of it is, like, for example, Starbucks. They've said to me, well, both Starbucks and I'm working on a deal from the land. I'm representing the landlord with 7-Eleven, and both companies, one, I represent Starbucks. We want to take advantage of this. We're going to continue to grow, but we're going to make our deals. And it's basically make our deal, agree to our terms, do the deal the way we want to do it, or we're not going to do it. And I see that even in this, it's only been a short time, although it feels like a million years, a lot of landlords are already starting to relent and saying, okay, sure, I'll give you that termination right. we were at X rent. Okay, take it $20,000 a year off. I don't care. I want to make the deal. 7-Eleven similar. The message I'm getting from them, and I'm trying to communicate to the landlord, is they want to be here. It's a very competitive rent. They're not discounting the rent. They want to be there, but they're basically saying all of our clauses, we're going to get those, or we're just not going to do the deal. And I think it's just interesting. I see it from the tenant perspective, but as you as a landlord, how do you feel, Kevin, about that? And are you seeing any of those tenants trying to take advantage? And how are you handling that? Are you standing firm, or are you being more reasonable and saying, you know what, I want to fill the space, I'm going to fill the space?
You nailed the only real sector that's active like that. It's the dollar stores. We're not seeing that. I actually had a couple of deals with Starbucks that are put on hold, albeit not in New York. I think obviously, yeah, I think I'm actually curious to hear that about them, because I think they're going to shrink their footprint after something like this. And
100%. I think that they're going to go
like double lane drive-through or something.
Yes.
Like that. They're going to really change things up. I'm curious to hear what you said about that, because they put both the deals we had on hold, and one was pretty far along.
I agree completely, and I don't think so. All deals, from what I understand, I have a number of deals that are at execution. So everything they've told me is on hold for at least 2 weeks until they have some succinct COVID language in the lease.
Yeah.
And they have a monster legal team that's working on it. So I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm being told that we're in the gray right now, is what my rep keeps telling me. Give it 2 weeks, it'll be black or white. We'll know what we're doing. Supposedly there's going to be a big national broker deal maker summit in the next 2 weeks, where they're going to give us very clear outlined directions on how to proceed with deals. I'm eagerly awaiting. I very much want to know what they're going to do. But yeah, I think that the other message I'm getting is we're going to have less seats. We might shrink the size of our cafe, still go freestanding, but really lean into drive-through even more than we have. I think, again, from a local market perspective, where I'm in the suburbs of New York City, where I think drive-through is king, I think we're a little more insulated than some of the more urban centers. I think urban centers, they're just, the model is going to have to change. It's just because they don't want people lingering in the stores. But where we are in the burbs, I mean, I believe short term, and when I say short term, 60, 90, 120 days, they're going to say, put the pedal to the metal. We're going to try to steal as many quarters as we can and open up more drive-throughs. I really genuinely believe that, because at 3 or 4 tenants aren't paying rent, right? They're paying rent. 4 out of 4 tenants, except for, let's say, dollar stores, aren't even making deals, and they're like, we're still making deals. So, let's take advantage.
Yeah, I think a lot of I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, a lot of times, I think a lot of companies, the healthy ones, everyone's kind of taking a pause just because of the volume of work that's, the changing, the practices. And I think, to your point, the COVID language, everyone kind of needs to take at least a couple weeks. It doesn't mean they're on hold, once things get up and running. But I think that everyone's evaluating opportunities. Like for us, if there's an expansion opportunity, everyone's, looking at those new opportunities and, kind of just waiting to get past the hump.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for you guys, and we can go around the horn with them. But one thing I'd be curious to get your thoughts on is, retail. We're all in quote unquote retail real estate, and obviously that has been changing. The definition of retail real estate is evolving over many years now. Obviously, with the internet, et cetera, et cetera. The internet proof, concepts have been the ones that are thriving. And oftentimes today we look to restaurants, hospitality, fitness, wellness, those types of categories to take up space from the traditional retailers that have closed down. Now that, a lot of those tenants are the ones most impacted by coronavirus. Kevin, what's your thoughts on your assets and how, that space that you get back now, are there going to be as many tenants jumping to come in, and how's that affect market rent, and how's that affect the value of your shopping centers?
You nailed it. The two, most active or two of the most active healthy sectors have been the fitness and the restaurant groups. And I think both really got hit hard by this and are in a drastic change. The larger restaurant chains is what really scares me. I just don't know when people are going to go back to these 100+ seat restaurants. You know, like we have that very own Texas Roadhouse in Long Island. They have rock solid financials, but they're a steakhouse. They can't really do delivery. They're designed on bars and sports environment. I don't know when people are going to rush back to something like that.
Yeah, and another thing is, when there's going to be mandated, capacity, right? So, if Texas Roadhouse has 325 seats and they have to open at 150 seats or whatever it is, it's going to directly affect what they can actually afford to pay in rent. Yeah, and it becomes everybody's problem. There's no real answer. The landlord's not responsible for, what the government mandates moving forward and the rent deal that you guys negotiated, before there were these types of issues. Jen, are you guys looking, to obviously make any changes to the business as a result of this?
Yeah, so our stores are generally on the smaller side. So, we don't have a lot of people in our stores at once. So I don't think that's going to be a real concern for us. Our grooming rooms, we only have one at a time. We don't board animals. So that's not one of our concerns. It will really just be about, from here on out, I'm guessing cleaning more and having more procedures in place. But we don't really have to worry about, the amount of people, the occupancy in our stores. It's not a real concern of ours.
Russell, you're working on some big development projects, and obviously, I think a lot of the tenants that are on site plans today are definitely majorly impacted. How do you see that changing, when everybody starts to open back up and come back to life? Do you think a lot of the tenants that are on those site plans might no longer be there and more space, will be available in those developments?
I do. The one large one we're handling for Seritage in Long Island, it's a very exciting project. It's two-pronged. One, I think we have the benefit of being 2 to 3 years out, so we're still actively working on deals. We're very close to signing a grocery store, which, as you, Kevin, kicked off, grocery is king. They're still doing really well, but I think they still need to modify the way they do business. I think they need to lean into the better direct-to-consumer delivery. I just don't think they're doing a great job. As a consumer who's using that service, it's a pretty frustrating process, but I also don't fault them. They got a 30 to 40% uptick in business overnight. So how could you service that? It's nearly impossible without the infrastructure in place, even with Whole Foods. And you'd think, as Amazon being the best logistics company around, we got a Whole Foods order this morning. A ton of stuff was missing. Charged us for a bunch of stuff that we didn't get. It's okay. They're great. They refund immediately. And I think that they're best in class when it comes to it, but it's still a very frustrating process. But a great example, 24-hour fitness, very, very weak right now. We have a 24-hour deal signed to the project. I have no idea what's going to happen there. I think we'll be able to pivot on that box and do something else with it. And we had some other ideas of what to do. We also had a theater deal done with iPick, it's not COVID related, but that deal went away because they filed before this even happened. Yeah, I think that the larger boxes are going to be harder to fill. I think that if we're creative and go smaller in the spaces, we'll have a better chance of getting some deals done. I think we also just need to be more creative on the deal structure, even though it's 3 years out, and let people ramp up their business. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see how we merchandise something like that. It's a 250,000 square foot retail development with almost 500 apartments above it. So yeah, we were like, oh, we'll backfill with co-working, which we have a co-working deal we're very close with getting done. But who knows? Are we going back to offices? Even in a co-working environment? I don't know. Definitely not in mass. I don't see it. And also to your point, Kevin, about large scale restaurants, no one's itching to go to eat a nice dinner more than me. I've cooked 1 million meals in the last 38 days or whatever it's been, like literally. And I love cooking, but at this point, like, just have someone like a waiter come give me some food and like not have to clean a dish. Yeah, that sounds awesome, but I don't foresee it happening, at least in my family, anytime soon whatsoever.
Kevin, Are you guys looking at opportunity to purchase and sitting on the sidelines? What are your thoughts on that?
Great question. We just talked about this week. There was some stuff that was lingering for sale before. Obviously, nothing new has really come to market in the last few weeks. Stuff that was lingering for sale or had auction dates. There was a thought about going and bidding and pouncing because you really be competing against no one, but we decided not to. Conserve capital. I just graduated 2008, so I didn't really see the process in full, but the real purchase opportunities were 2010, 11. It takes a year or two for the loans, to default and the process to take its course. So we're gearing ourselves up to definitely be in a great financial position to buy, but we foresee those opportunities being more like a year or two from now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Jen, what are your thoughts in general on, just the evolution of our industry? Like what's going to change that maybe we're not discussing yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for us and a lot of probably people that have similar operations, I think that, what Russell was talking about with delivery service, I think, there's going to have to be more of that and somebody that does it better. I mean, Instacart, they just couldn't handle it. GoPuff, they're still not, there's nobody that's really excelling there. And we may have to look into adding that to our operations, anyway. There may be people that just don't want to go out anymore. So I think that the delivery and, maybe even adding extra space to our location so that we can have, a place where we can do those kind of services. I think that it's going to be important for every retailer to look at that, expanding on those delivery and, more of the internet sales.
I'm just curious as consumers, guys, like, if we're able to, let's just say for argument's sake, May 15th, we're able to, go back out and get back into our routines a little bit. Are you guys reluctant to go to work out in a group setting with wherever you might work out now? What's your thoughts?
So I usually work out in a small group setting. I do privates. I do private Pilates, or I do private instruction with one other person. So I don't know. I probably would be hesitant to go back into a gym. Maybe 8 to 10 people, not so bad, but just, a gym in general would probably take a little while for me to be comfortable with.
Kevin?
Not me, to be honest with you. I like in a gym setting, I'm self-sufficient. I would just wipe down my treadmill and then my mat and whatever weight I'm using. I'm itchy as hell. I'm just saying this now. I may change my mind when I'm next to the gym and someone's coughing or sneezing or something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm
Well, that's
to get out on May 16th. I'm with Russ. I'll sit at a restaurant. I'm in that mindset right now. I'm itchy.
Yeah. I'm dying to travel, but
I just right now is actually my second day. I'm in Long Island. I moved into my parents' house like I'm like a college kid again because I'm in Manhattan and I have no space in my apartment. My kids are going crazy. The park across the street from me is closed. I've been losing it for a while.
I knew that was coming. I asked you like a couple of weeks ago, and you said if this goes on any much longer, I'm moving to my parents.
12 years.
Kids need space.
I've never second guessed it. This is the first time in my life I'm second guessing it.
A good point, Russell. What's your thoughts on the on getting out and about?
So listen, I'm like I said, as far as going to a restaurant, I want to. I'm not going to. I am very much looking forward to at least getting back to the office and getting some of that routine. But again, as far as I do takeout, which I'm doing now, some anyway, but I don't see myself going dining. Even at like lunch for work, I'd do takeout. I don't think I'm going to sit at a restaurant. As far as going to the gyms, again, hesitant. It's people just breathing heavy, sweating, coughing. It doesn't matter how clean it is. And also, I invested in a Peloton, whatever, since November. I love it. I think it's great. I think that all of the other boutique fitness groups that are offering these free or paid services online are great. I think you're still getting a good workout. Do I miss some of that camaraderie, some of that fun, some of that pushing yourself, and some of that chatter that you're having when you're at like a social setting? Yeah, for sure. And I was talking to someone, I can't remember who it is now, one of our clients, and he was training jujitsu. That was like his thing. He was like super into it. He had
Justin Rosenberg from Honeyberg.
Yes, exactly. And he said to me, he goes, I'm done. He goes, that's over. I'm never going back. I don't want some sweaty guy breathing in my mouth while he tries to choke me out. I'm never going back. It was hilarious.
That's
Let me
funny.
ask you answer something on the gym part, because South Carolina we just saw, because we have a mall, so we were governmentally mandated to close, and they sent us guidelines on how we can open. So we looked at a letter literally from the governor, and when you look at the guidelines they sent, they said 5 people per 1,000 square feet, and whatever the operation is.
Hmm.
Burlington, if you're a gym, and we have Planet Fitness there, it's about 20,000 square feet, let's say. That's 100 people at a time. I doubt there's many more than that, maybe at those peak 5 to 7 hours or early morning. But under those guidelines, starting next week, they're going to be almost up to full speed. I don't know if people are going to be going, but those are the guidelines we received from the governor, and that seems pretty full to me for the bigger boxes.
Yeah, it's interesting that, they were lobbying to get open, the gyms were lobbying and they were successful to get included in like the phase 1 of businesses that are opening. And I've been watching a lot of the bigger gyms, they're implementing some process with, they're going to have stuff on the floor where you have to stand if you're like not on equipment, so everybody's kind of, going to be as spaced out as possible.
Like velvet ropes, kind of like you go to a club, like you wait for the bench press.
Cows on the floor, I would think, versus ropes. But yeah, it'll be interesting because, I'm fascinated by a lot of stuff that people haven't even thought about yet or are not talking about yet. If you go to a clothing store, right? Like you go to Zara and you try on a pair of pants, like you take those pants off and you hang them in the fitting room. What happens to those pants? Is that like hazardous material now, where the person there needs to like take it, throw it in a plastic bucket, and they need to be disinfected? And there's so many things that even when you actually open for business, there's so many things that we're not even thinking about that are going to be, need to be taken into consideration. So I feel like even when we get open, things are going to be slow to be figured out.
You mentioned that the other day, Jay, and I didn't have a chance to chime in because I just also thought about it. Yes, in the store is one thing, but let's say now I'm avoiding going to the store. I'm ordering Kevin and I talked about this earlier, a pair of ABC pants from Lululemon, right? They come to my house. I try them on. I don't like them. I send them back. Now they go back to the warehouse. Are they being disinfected before someone else buys them and they go somewhere else? No, I don't know. Probably not. How long does the virus live on a pair of Lululemon pants? I couldn't tell you. But it's interesting to think. You're like, oh, I'm safer because I'm buying it online. I'm not seeing anyone. But who knows if Kevin didn't try those pants on already and then returned them and then now I got them. And I don't know. It's probably safe, but I just was thinking about it. Like, it could, who knows?
Everybody crazy.
It's make you crazy.
Yeah. I mean, everything I read an article yesterday in the New York Post about how that doesn't really stick to clothing like that. Because there was a question on, after you grocery shop, should you be cleaning your clothes or changing? And they said, there's nothing to support that. So I think it's just too new. We need to really find out what's facts and what's just extra precautions that you really don't need to be taking.
Are there, you guys brought up New York City, obviously. Kevin, you just fled for the burbs. You had an opportunity, and obviously you have kids, need more space. We're all understanding of that. How do you see New York City when things start to open back up? Because, I have an office in the city, and I'm definitely going to avoid that office, longer than I would, obviously, our suburban offices.
I think it'll be the last part of the country to come back, and it's unfortunately the most vibrant. I'm going to be honest with you, it may be an extreme. I'm seeing a mass exodus. Like, I have a lot of friends, and let's call it my young dad circle. We've all been teetering in it once we've had our second kid or third kid or even the first kid. Should we stay? Should we not stay? Anyone who's kind of been in that mindset is telling me we're out. Like, we're looking to buy already, we're renting something and we may not come back, whatever it may be. I'm a little concerned. The office scene, it's frightening what can happen in that world. These buildings with thousands of people in it, I really don't know. It was already shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. Everyone's footprint is already, getting lower and lower. And there was already, it depends on what sector, of course, but so many work from home protocols. I really don't know what to predict about the office sector. I'm scared. But on a residential speaking, I'm honestly possibly seeing a big exodus for people really interested in prioritizing more space.
Kevin,
So
do you
you
have a
mentioned
lot of office space?
We thankfully only in a lot of our office space happens to be in suburb markets. We have
Okay, that's
a
good.
couple of buildings in Manhattan and nothing major.
And you work you do work remotely, right? A hybrid of in the office and remotely.
I'm sorry, me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, I work from home.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm just like, this is fine. Just everyone else has to leave.
Interesting.
Well, Kevin, I wanted to know from you. So obviously, you're not in the city right now. You live in the city. Let's say you said May 16th, if it opens up, you'd go to the gym. May 16th, are you going to move back to your apartment in the city? And if that's said, are you? I mean, your office is right in the heart of Midtown, right by Penn Station. Millions of people everywhere. It's like you can't avoid people there, right? Are you going back to the office?
That's the thing about a family office. Listen, I'm not going to make my dad who's in his 60s or my uncles in their 70s go. If someone's got to go, it's got to be me or my cousin, you know. And you're right. I would probably just have to drive, even from Manhattan, and I would self-park downstairs and pay up the ass for parking, whatever it is. But I'm not going on the subway for a long time. I'll put it to you like that. But if we get to the point, I would say we're 40 people between the two sides. If we're at 5, 10 people, I'm assuming I'm one of them, you know, so I'm probably just going to drive and self-park. It's not going to be fun. I'm going to walk in and out with, you know, everything probably for a long time, but I probably will be one of the first to go back.
Russell, what are your thoughts? You, like most other people, have, you know, had to just go from like having a home office that barely gets used to having a home office that becomes your full-time office. What have you learned through this, and how do you see that impacting the office market after this?
Listen, in a non-virus world, I kind of like working from home. I think that doing it for whatever it's been, 40 days in a row without a break, was definitely a challenge. I think also working from home when one of your kids is supposed to be at school and is a school age and is then home every day. You know, my little one, he's cool. He's like 10 months. He's not bothering anyone, but my daughter's in kindergarten and she needs attention, and it's a lot for my wife to manage both like all day while I'm sequestered in my office. But I feel that going forward, even in a suburban market like where we're officed, or I'm officed, I think it's going to become a hybrid of working from home and working from the office.
Yeah.
I had over the summer, I had broken my foot. I couldn't drive, and I worked from home, and I found that I was much more productive for paperwork and phone calls and whatnot working from home, because when I was working in the office, you know, there's a lot of distractions, there's a lot of questions asked, a lot of, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And I'm always open to do it, but then you lose focus on what you're working on. So I feel that working from home in a perfect world, I think is very productive.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are bored of being home. To your point, I think hybrid will be more of the way they go, because people want to get out occasionally, see their coworkers, especially get together for meetings. There's something that, you know, there's something to be said about having your group together. I know Sabre is a big, you know, that you believe in the family and the getting together. I think there needs to be a mix of that.
I agree. But what happens to let's transition to co-working. What happens to co-working spaces with everything going on with WeWork? What do you guys think happens there?
They asked for a 30% rent reduction. I don't think they're going to get it across the board, but they have leverage. They're at the point now where a company like them, if they say, okay, we're filing, we're done, we leave, there's all of a sudden millions of square feet of office space. They have some leverage, but they also are not financially stable. It's a tough call with them on that side. But if you mean operationally, who's renting space from them? I don't know.
Because I think the challenge with that, right? Like, so you mentioned Sabre, Jim. Like, we all know each other. I know that everyone I work with is very hygienic, right? And I know we're a small team. I know everyone on my team, but you go into a co-working space where there could be 100 different companies, let's say, and I don't know any of the other people. Like, I don't know who they are, where they came from, what they're doing, who they got coughed on by. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it kind of.
And to your point, I think knowing the people, you know that going forward, people are going to have to be more cautious. If you have a cold before you'd go in, maybe now people won't, and they'll respect their coworkers and say, all right, I'm not feeling well, I'm going to stay home. Hopefully there'll be more of that. But to your point, those co-working, you don't know you don't know these people.
Even if you start testing, you're standing, let's say you stand at your front door and every morning you walk in, you take a swab and you're testing. That's it. But what happens that first time when you come in and you test positive and you were there the next day and I sit next to you, or I ate lunch with you, or I sat in the conference room with you? Does your whole office freak out and say, I'm going home? I was with that guy yesterday. Maybe I'm going to have it tomorrow. That everyone says you could stand at the door and you can test. If you don't have it, you're
right.
good. What happens when someone shows up at 9 a.m. and they were tested positive and they were there yesterday? That's when I think it gets to hysteria again.
Yeah, right. It's just, then it becomes unmanageable.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I think the only way, unfortunately, to the other side of this thing is basically through it. There's not going to be a vaccine for 12 to 18 months. So, and that's a good kind of segue to tie us up here, what the PPP loans, all of those other relief programs are taking into consideration, 60, 90 days. We all agree that there's a lot more time for us to normalize than 60 to 90 days. What's the bridge to a vaccine? And, where do we go from here, Kevin?
I hope it comes sooner than later on the vaccine. I think that's the first time you'll have complete, and it's okay. Now everyone's going to say we can go back to normal now. Until then, it'll just be a trickle up effect and some steps backwards and forwards. Almost in a slower case, like in March, it came to the point where, okay, 75% of the workforce, 50% of the workforce, 25% of the workforce. I think we're going to go backwards.
Go back to that.
Much slower. Things were happening like every 3 days. I think it's going to happen like every few weeks in that regard until we at least maybe get a treatment or we see that down, or I don't know. But we're going to be living with this in our heads for at least a year.
Jen, what are your final thoughts here?
I think that those most vulnerable are going to have to, probably isolate longer. I think the healthy people that, are presumed to be healthy are going to go out, wear your masks, wash your hands, and just, be as safe as you can be. But I think that we're going to have to begin to live this new life for a while.
Russell, why don't you close us out here?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this at length and multiple times, Jay. Yeah, I think we're at least a year, probably more like 18 months until we see any level of real, true normalcy. And I agree, it's about you have to have a vaccine in place, or you have to have an antiviral in place. I agree. I think people like our parents are going to be on lockdown a lot longer than we are. But then the side of that that's crazy is that now, like, if I re-enter the world, like, now you can't see your parents, right? So you have to continue to social distance with them. And I think that's going to be hard, and it's going to be a real trying time. But, I think that long term, I think we're going to come out of this stronger than before. And I think you're going to force people to evolve. It's Darwinism, right? So it's evolve or die. So I think that whether it's a retailer, a landlord, a broker, or any industry that we're talking about, they're going to figure out a way to live in the new world and thrive in the new world. It's America, right? We're innovators, and it's going to all work out in the long term. My biggest concern is that gap. How do we stay alive? As everyone, and I don't mean physically, how do we all stay in business, keep it going in the next 18 months? And I know we'll figure it out. I'm sure we will.
For sure. Well, guys, I appreciate you all. I'm happy that you guys are safe and healthy. Kevin, I'm happy you have a little more space.
And now we need good weather, though. We need good weather.
Ugh, I know.
It's terrible. And you can't even, we have our kids home from school. We could actually up and leave and go somewhere, but you can't. It's like, come on, let's all take a road trip. Yeah, that's not happening. All right, guys. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
Bye, guys.
me.
Hey, guys.
Cause this is digital discussions.